So Angela needs really no introduction. I should say Mrs. Johnson for our students in the crowd. She is our middle and upper school art teacher. She is also our mental health counselor or consultant. And then she received a BA in psychology with a minor in art from Bethel University and went on to receive a master's degree in counseling, marriage, and family therapy from the University of St. Thomas. She's a licensed therapist with Northwoods Christian Counseling, which I think is right here in White Bear. And she's worked in the field of mental health for over 15 years. She is also a devoted wife to her husband, Mark, and mother to 4 beautiful Liberty Lions. Please join me tonight in welcoming our own Mrs. Angela Johnson.
All right. So let me start. Imagine your child years from now standing at the crossroads facing a difficult life decision. Perhaps they're facing failure, rejection, maybe even loss. How do they handle it? In that moment, will they rise with the quiet confidence of someone who knows how to endure and thrive? Or will they crumble under the weight of the world or their own existence? Virtue, grit, and perseverance, they are not just traits. They're the lifelines that we can give our own children to navigate life's toughest storms. Rooted in a biblical worldview, these qualities become more than survival tools. They can transform into a foundation of faith, character, and hope that can anchor them no matter what life brings. So, I'm Mrs. Johnson, Angela Johnson, mom. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I actually specialize in trauma therapy. Over the past 15 years of my career, I have been helping people of all ages, starting from the age of 3 years old, through adults to learn from and recover from some of life's toughest challenges. I help them learn about resilience and strength and how to manage what they've gone through. I'm a wife, mother of 4 Liberty Lions, and I also, like Mrs. Hagstrom said, I teach art here at Liberty. Through my work with countless individuals and families, and even through my own journey in life, I can see what has helped separate individuals that go through horrible, life-changing situations with strength, grit, and resilience against those that crumble under the pressure of their very own existence. Parenting, it does not always lead to good outcomes, especially when we focus on the wrong goals. But Proverbs 22:6 remind us to train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. Tonight, we are going to explore some of these topics. We are going to explore how to prioritize virtue, grit, and perseverance in raising children who can endure and overcome life's challenges. So, back in the 1990s, there was an experiment done called the Biosphere 2 project. I don't know if anyone's heard of this. It's when a group of researchers over a 2-year span wanted to see if humans could be sustained by food that was grown under a dome for the goal of self-sustainability. Now, they gave these plants everything that we learn about in school: water, soil, light. And the trees took root and grew as expected. But what they did not account for was no wind. No wind to create stress. As trees grew, they eventually cracked and simply fell over. Why? Because the trees did not grow what is called stress wood. This is wood that is strong enough to withstand winds, and it forces the roots to grow deeper so that the tree can overcome winds and storms. So how do you help your children grow strength and resilience? You let them, first of all, experience stress storms. You may even have to let your child fail, but you are there to help them overcome. Let me repeat this. You let your children experience the storm. Now, every storm looks different depending on where your child is developmentally. And yes, parents, it is your job to protect your children, but you don't protect them by putting a dome over them. You protect them from the person or situation that will set fire to the base of the tree or take an axe and chop it down. You protect them from external influences that will destroy their spirit. In the book Anxious Generation, many have probably read this, but Jonathan Haidt, the author, he talks about children needing to be anti-fragile. The meaning of anti-fragile is that people or things need to experience some stressors. Now, not constant stress, but stress now and then to become strong. So, for example, our immune systems. Newborn babies, we protect them from serious illnesses that we know that they are too fragile to handle. But by the very nature of their development, such as crawling on the floor, putting everything in their mouth, is God's way of allowing them to get colds, runny noses, the occasional fever, so that they can later have a healthy immune system, and when they're out of the house, facing every germ known to mankind. It's the same situation for our own psychological well-being. Haidt talks about how it is essential for the ability for a child to handle, process, and get past frustration, minor accidents, some teasing, some exclusions, some perceived injustices, and normal conflicts without falling prey to days, weeks, and months of inner turmoil. I tell my clients mental health is not the absence of anxiety, depression, or anger. Mental health is how do you handle life when you are anxious, nervous, or depressed? How do you handle disappointment, rejection, pain? Imagine a child that has never experienced a single unfair thing or hard thing in life. What type of adult would they be? How do you think they would handle it when the hurricane comes when they're 35 and they've never faced the gentle breeze of a summer rain when they're 5 years old? Hebrews 12:11. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness of those who have been trained by it. What does that mean? First of all, liberty, we learn Latin. The word discipline comes from the Latin word discipuli, which means learner or student. When we are being disciplined, we are learning. Therefore, all discipline, learning new things, and all hard things are painful and not what? Fun or make you feel happy. But what does it do later? It produces the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Chasing after success, happiness, or intelligence, this produces fragile individuals. Happiness is fleeting. Intelligence can't solve every problem. And success without character leads to moral failure. Many parents fail to clearly communicate that they value their child's character far more than their academic success, the college they attend, their financial success, or even their immediate happiness. Hebrews said it. Discipline, those stress wins, they're hard, but they don't produce success or intelligence. That grit, that discipline, it gives righteousness, which is a godly value. It will give the characteristics most of you want your children to have, or students that you want to feel. Peace. Not depression, not anxiety, not anger, but peace. Goodness, courage, and integrity. These shape individuals who can navigate hardships with grace. Virtue is not innate. It must be taught and practiced. Parents, educators, teaching children to value what is right over perfection, over what is easy, equips them for a life of resilience. Students, doing what is right over what is easy equips you for a life of resilience and joy. This takes the fear out of, what should I do? The answer, it's usually what's right. And sometimes what is right is hard. Cast all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. So many of you know about my family and what we've been dealing with for the past 2 years. When I was 30 weeks pregnant with my 4th child, after a full day of seeing clients, I got a text from my husband, who was at the urgency room because he was coughing up blood. Doctors found something in my chest. Phone's about to die, come. I show up, and he has discharge papers in his hands, and I think he's ready to go home. He looks at me and tells me they found a lump in his chest, and his blood work shows that he may have cancer. I must immediately take him to the emergency room. Don't pass go, don't collect $200. I asked if we could grab dinner, but the doctor said no, go straight to the emergency room. Well, I'm large and pregnant, and it's been a long day, so we drove through for dinner. Good thing we did, because we spent the next 36 hours snuggled on an ER bed while he underwent CT scans, biopsies, blood work, all the things, to later be told that my husband had leukemia. My husband had what was diagnosed as acute lymphoblastic leukemia, a cancer so aggressive that if you do nothing, you are dead in a matter of weeks to months. He started an extremely aggressive form of chemotherapy, and that required a stay in the hospital for 5 weeks. This was January 2023. He still gets chemo and will continue to be treated for the next 16 months. By the grace of God, he is in remission. There are no signs of disease in his body. But because leukemia has such a high return rate, he must be treated for a little over 3 years. How do we endure this long suffering? How did we get through this storm? 1, our foundation was built on Christ. Of my clients who endured some of the most horrific experiences, those that had faith in Christ were able to get through the other side. 2, our parents allowed us to experience the stress wins. Mark would say that his stress wins were watching his parents go through their own struggles, toughness learned from being a 3-sport athlete, and the discipline and life lessons gained from playing football at Bethel. For me, my parents did not raise me under a glass dome. They let me experience failure, rejection, pain, and most importantly, they taught me to be virtuous and godly and have godly values. And finally, 3, we had a community, a body of believers that surrounded us to manage the storm. We were not made to do this life alone. So, the first step, have a strong relationship with your children. Starting in the early years of development, parents are encouraged to build a strong relationship with their children. Attachment theory was developed by Mary Ainsworth and Jim Bowlby. It suggests that children who have strong attachments to their primary caregivers early in life have developed a crucial foundation for building resiliency later. As your children learn and grow, because of that strong attachment that was built when they were younger, they already have a solid start to manage and handle life's challenges. Having healthy attachment to primary caregivers, this helps individuals build healthy relationships in the future, such as with friends, future spouses. It helps to build a strong community around them. Additionally, when you develop a good relationship with your children, you are then able to discipline and love. Discipline without love breeds resentment. Love without boundaries creates instability. Balance these elements to foster both trust and respect. Psalm 127:3 says, "Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from them." Love, cherish, nurture your children. They are a gift from God. So, some practical tips for this. This applies to children regardless of their developmental age. Spend intentional time with your children. Listen to their thoughts. Affirm their worth. The most common complaint from children is that parents don't spend enough time with them. Get off your phone. Take your family to church. Let them see you reading your Bible. Be an example of the person that you want your children to be. Because having godly children was a priority for my parents, they were extremely disciplined and intentional about their relationships with us and in our instruction in the Lord. Every morning, we did a quick family psalm at the breakfast table, followed by some prayer. Every evening, family devotions where my father read everything from Fox's Book of Martyrs, various small devotionals, definitely a chapter out of the Bible. Some nights it was just the chapter and a memory verse. Others, it included the extras, depending on the season. But no matter who sat around that dinner table, the Bible was read. Church, non-negotiable. Unless we were sick, we went to church. Sports that took the place of Sabbath were not allowed. Work on the Sabbath, not allowed. They did not bow down to the idol of success. My father regularly took my sister and I out on dates doing things that we enjoyed. He took us to the ballet, museums, plays, Dodger games, simply driving around LA looking for fun places to eat. Additionally, parents, have them spend time with you, seeing what that you think is important to spend your time on. Is it music, art, gardening, fixing cars, cooking, whatever? When children spend time with their parents, learning and doing what their parents are interested in, it teaches them, first of all, life skills. Secondly, it teaches that the world does not revolve around them. So how does all of this build grit and resilience? Well, first, it strengthens the relationship with a child's parents so that they know that they are people that can be trusted and love them no matter who they are or what they do. But the daily Bible reading, teaching, going to church, all that stuff, that's discipline. Discipline to put aside things that the world is telling us that we need to do to get ahead and instead prioritize what's important. It takes discipline to day in and day out teach your family about Christ. It takes discipline to love your family well. It takes discipline and grit to stay in a marriage and work on the struggles and raise your children well. This does not mean that Christians should be content with being mediocre because they're not placing success or intelligence as their primary focus. Christians should absolutely strive to be the best at whatever industry or activity they are a part of. But remember, the best, it's not perfection. If we were perfect, we would not have to rely on God to fill in the gaps. Always do your best. Encourage your children to do their best. Work hard. But don't expect perfection. That Biosphere 2 project, that was a perfect environment. But without storms, there's nothing to build strength. So, maybe we've done the right things. We've built that strong relationship with our kids. Maybe you haven't. First of all, it's never too late to begin now. There's a great book called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters by Dr. Megan Meeker. In it, she talks about a girl that was out of control behaviorally. She eventually needed to be sent away to rehab. After some counseling with her parents, her father realized that his absence in her life took and made an impact on her behavior. So he took her on a camping trip, just the two of them, right before he dropped her off at rehab. He told her how much he loved her and how he would love her no matter what, and he would be there for her when she got out. She made it through rehab, and she said that that time with her dad was what got her through. Parents, it's never too late. Maybe you have that strong relationship. You want to know what's next. How does one build resilience and allow your child to manage the stress storms? Society, it often views failure as something to avoid at all costs, but failure can be one of life's best teachers. allowing your children to fail at age-appropriate ways teaches them to cope, adapt, and try again. When I worked with kids who struggled with anger management or difficult behaviors, I would often play certain games with them that I knew that they would lose so that they would get mad, and then I could help them learn how to manage those big feelings and help them to be stronger. My favorite was Skip-Bo. They always would lose that. Students, the things you are going through now, it feels really big. But it is producing strength to help you get through harder things down the road. Even the most accomplished people face challenges in life. Here are some examples of a few. So this individual faced struggles in school and was initially deemed a poor student. He went on to revolutionize science with his theories. You probably can guess who he is. Albert Einstein. This individual was cut from his high school basketball team. He reported to have missed over 9,000 shots in his career and lost more than 300 games. Michael Jordan. This man suffered a debilitating stutter. It made him nearly mute for years. He overcame it to be a legendary actor with one of the most recognized voices in the world. James Earl Jones. This man, he filed bankruptcy and had multiple business failures early in his career. He went on to create one of the most iconic entertainment industries in the world. Oh, Walt Disney. Okay? His last one. This man is a deaf musician who was awkward at playing the violin. He was told he was too stupid to be a composer. Beethoven. The list goes on and on. There's a video that went viral recently by Tom Brady. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but in it he talks about how football is hard. He talks about how hard it is when you were young to get up in the off season and get up early and train, knowing that your friends are sleeping in and eating pancakes. It's hard going to practice, being weighed down by all your gear when it's 90 degrees outside, and your friends are in the pool, and you're already exhausted from workouts and two-a-days. It's hard to play the game against kids who are bigger than you, faster than you, and do it again and again. But life, it's hard. We are promised in God's word that we will face challenges. But we are promised that these challenges will produce perseverance, and that perseverance will produce hope. Guess what? It's hard to inject shots of chemo into your body. It's hard to force yourself to eat when all you want to do is curl up in a ball and die because the meds have made you so sick and nauseous. It's hard to watch your husband lose a third of his body weight, all of his hair, and no longer be able to walk up the driveway. But that boy who showed up to two-a-days in the summer's heat, who put 75 pounds of muscle to be able to hit O-linemen bigger than him, learned how to do things that were hard. He learned how to never quit. So, we all need,
Let me tell you something you already know.
Listen to Rocky.
The world ain't all... Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you wanna be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that.
When I was in school, I was the worst runner. I don't know if any of you 90s eras kids remember having to do the presidential physical fitness challenge in gym class. Okay, I never made the top tier medal, ever. So, one year, I decided to cheat. While yelling out what number lap I was on, I decided to skip a couple and ended up finishing the mile right around the time the fast kids did. I finally got the top tier medal. But I was raised in that virtuous Christian home. I developed a conscience and felt guilty. So I told my dad what I did. He did not rescue me. He did not make excuses for me. But he supported me in doing the right thing. He told my teacher what happened and set up a meeting, and I had to tell my teacher what I did. And my teacher, he was very happy that I told him, but I would need to rerun that mile. There, standing on the sidelines, was my dad cheering me on. And that last lap of the mile, my PE teacher ran it with me. I didn't get the time that would put me at the top tier, but I did something hard. I did the right thing. That further instilled virtue. Upholding godly values such as honesty, integrity, righting a wrong, these all help develop a sense knowing that I can do the right thing when faced with challenging decisions down the line. Additionally, I never wanted to be faced with that situation again, so I worked harder on running to be able to finish the race better the next time. Angela Duckworth, she's a researcher. She did research on what the most successful individuals have that made them who they were. Was it their resources, talent, strength, the environment that they grew up in? Her research found that grit was the biggest determinant of success. Her research on grit highlights that perseverance is more important than talent in achieving long-term goals. Her research could be answered in the Bible, Romans 5:3-5. Not only that, but we rejoice in our suffering, knowing that suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Suffering does what? Produces endurance. What does endurance produce? Character. That's goodness, virtue. And that goodness and virtue, what does it produce? Hope. And what does hope give to us? Happiness, joy. If you are valuing success, safety, ease over goodness, you are compromising character for the sheer outcome of success. Help children see challenges as opportunities to grow. Instead of solving every problem for them, guide them in helping find their own solutions. When your child faces difficulty, ask guiding questions like, what do you think you can do to solve this? How could you learn from this experience? What can you do differently? Expect growth, not perfection. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's a stepping stone. Research by Dr. Martin Seligman on learned optimism, it highlights how reframing failures as opportunities for growth foster resilience and positive outlook. In our class, we talk about happy accidents. How can we change it to make it better? Helping children overcome in adolescence, overcome setbacks, and thrive. Consider how Peter denied Jesus 3 times. Yet through his repentance and faith, he became a cornerstone of the early church. Failure refines and strengthens us. Allowing your kids to fail without allowing them to crumble. Let them experience natural consequences in a loving environment. For parents, what is something that you are currently doing for your child that they are able to do for themselves? What is something that they're unable to do, but ought to be able to do? Here is a slide of some examples. You can't see it, but there's a QR code if you feel like scanning it that leads to a website of a bunch of ideas. But these are simply executive functioning skills for developmental age. You can Google chores for kids based on developmental age, skills for children based on developmental age. There's tons of research and things out there that you can find to help you figure out how to help your child move forward. They don't need to do all, but pick one. Work on that with your child. Add more once they've accomplished that skill. And then encourage reflection and prayer about what they've learned. Students, perfection's not the goal. Growth and excellence are. Are you learning from your mistakes and experiences? Use your values and your virtues to drive your actions and work. This will help you to excel at whatever it is that you are working on. Protect your children from the arson that is burning down the tree before the tree can handle all the storms. What does this look like? Protect them from that which will harm their spirit. Children need to be protected from external influences before they can defend themselves. Keep their world small at first, and as they grow and develop, slowly allow it to be larger and larger. In that book, Anxious Generation, the author talks about protecting kids from the influence of social media. Kids who have access to the internet have resounding influences, increasing levels of mental health issues. I've seen it time and time again. Why is that? Their brains are unable to process the bombardment of information that is being thrown at them. Even us adults. For thousands of years, adults would only know what was happening across the world when either someone with a horse would ride through and let them know, to more recent times, newspapers in the morning and in the evening, and you can turn on and off the TV. But you could compartmentalize and still manage what was happening in your own life. Now, people are crippled because we have the news in our hand 24/7. Every second, you can find out how many kids are kidnapped, how many people are murdered, what other atrocity happened somewhere in the world. On the flip side, we also unfortunately find out who is more successful than we are, who's prettier, who has more money, who seems happier than you. We are left feeling miserable, sad, and afraid. Parents of middle schoolers, middle school, it's hard enough. Help them manage the stress of navigating difficult friendships, learning to adapt to their changing bodies, how to handle their emotions in healthy ways, but then allowing them to be on social media and to be a part of group chats allows the problems that are happening at school or in the world to be the problems happening at home. The stress winds become unrelenting. Like mentioned earlier, we need to make our kids anti-fragile, but this does not mean that we need to allow them to have to defend themselves against predators, influences that will turn them from the faith, and experience 24/7 bullying. My oldest daughter, she once asked me why I won't allow her on social media or have a smartphone until she's 100. I told her, smartphones, they give you access to the entire world. My parents live in the LA area, and I asked her, as a little girl, would I drop you off in downtown LA and expect you to get back to your grandparents' house and expect it to happen safely? Everyone in this room would say there is no way that she would be able to do that without at least getting mugged, lost, or probably something worse. But an adult who has lived there probably his whole life, maybe traveled the world, has street smarts, knows directions, knows what areas to avoid, knows how to defend himself, could probably do it just fine. Teach your children how to be virtuous and good, but if a small cube in their pocket or negative influences around them are telling them to lust, covet, self-serve, that they aren't good enough, you are fighting an uphill battle. Protect them from the arson at the bottom of the tree so that the tree can feel the winds and grow big and strong and not crumble under its very existence. So, how do we teach godly values and virtues? Throughout history, people have used oral tradition to convey messages and teach stories to children and even adults about culture and faith. Stories capture the imagination and create powerful lessons. As a trauma therapist, I often would use narrative therapy when working with kids to help them reprocess their traumas. In classical education, like here at Liberty, teachers teach through timeless literature and historical examples. These are better than movies. Why? Because when you see an image, you are forced to frame it in the way that someone else wants you to view it. But when reading a story, you can picture it in your own mind with what your mind can handle and close the book when you need a break. In history, students learn about Helen Keller, who overcame blindness and deafness, or Abraham Lincoln, who persevered through personal and professional failures. Here at Liberty, students read books like Beowulf, Uncle Tom's Cabin, The Hobbit, and other works of literature where they learn about people who didn't see themselves as victims, but who overcame odds to achieve a goal. They learn about grit, character, resilience. Reading stories in the Bible, you read about people like Joseph, who endured betrayal and imprisonment before rising to power. David, who faced Goliath with courage rooted in faith. None of the important in the Bible were the smartest, the happiest. I mean, read the Psalms. David's miserable half the time. And they probably weren't even the best looking. They were people who had to go through hard things. They worked hard, they didn't quit, and God used them in their weakness for His glory. Teachers and parents can use these stories to challenge students to reflect on their own struggles and opportunities for growth. Encourage children to see themselves as protagonists in their own stories of perseverance. In art class, many of you freshmen saw this last year, we talked about in 8th grade about Vincent van Gogh and his struggles about people not liking his own work. If you look at his early work, like this top one here, this is called The Potato Eaters. It's very realistic. It's also very dark. Despite no one liking Van Gogh's work, he continued to produce art pieces. But whose approval was he looking for? Man's. When we seek man's approval, we never find it. He eventually succumbed to his own mental illness, only to become famous after he died. He chased success and never would know what he would become. Raising kids, teaching students, going to school, it's not easy. It takes perseverance. Perseverance isn't about instant gratification. It's about working hard today for that better tomorrow. Looking at the characteristics of intelligence, success, happiness. If someone takes the easy way out, are they going to be successful? Will they be smart? Are they going to be happy? Or more importantly, do they have good values? If you are prioritizing success, you are opening the door for someone to look for the easy way out, such as a little girl who prioritized getting a good time running a mile, only to cheat to get the score she wanted. Afterwards, she wasn't happy. She definitely wasn't successful. But once she did the right thing by upholding good values, such as honesty and integrity, she was able to produce some character. James 1:12 says, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, the person will receive the crown of life." Carol Dweck, she's another researcher. Her concept of growth mindset encourages children to view challenges as opportunities to learn rather than unsurmountable obstacles. Teach your children not to fight what is hard, but if they trust you, you are loving and an encouraging parent, they can withstand some of the winds of stress. Now, if those winds of stress become crippling, reevaluate. And as the parent, because you are the one with a fully developed brain, you decide what is the best course of action for your child. What needs to change? What will help your child become the man or woman of God? When starting seeds, you put them under a dome. You protect them while they germinate. And as soon as it sprouts, you take the dome off and keep watering it. Eventually, you add a breeze and slowly do what is called hardening off, putting it outside in small spurts, starting in the shade, eventually in the sun for some small time, and then all day. Then you can put it in the soil. It's ready for the real world. No seed becomes a tree that produces fruit in a day. It takes time, care, perseverance. Challenges, they're opportunities to learn. There's a part of the brain called the mid-cingulate cortex. Go back. There we go. This part of the brain is located right along the middle part, along that corpus callosum, which connects the left and right side of the brain. This part of the brain, it does a majority of its development early in childhood, and it is responsible for helping regulate attention and inhibition. So what are these things that a child must learn when they're little? Self-control. This part of the brain is responsible for self-discipline. As a child goes through adolescence, this part goes through some refinement. And as an individual goes through adulthood, it is stimulated when they go through challenging experiences. This part of the brain is responsible for tenacity and willpower. When a child is encouraged to do something that's hard, that they don't want to do, this part of the brain becomes strengthened. When an adult does something that is challenging, it uses this part of the brain. Research is showing that the anterior part, that's the highlighted part, the anterior part of this mid-cingulate cortex, it's what's responsible for tenacity and survival. It's showing that people who live to a very old age, who have that will to live, this part of their brain is extremely strong. It is suggested to be a predictor of success in many domains of life, including mental and physical health. When this part of the brain is weak, it's suggested it can contribute to health problems such as obesity, eating disorders, ADHD, depression, and even some dementia. Research suggests that with significant behavioral training, this part can still be altered. So, what can a parent do? Set realistic, we're freezing now. Where'd it go? I think my computer died. Nope. Hold on. She'll figure it out. So, what can a parent do? Set realistic, age-appropriate goals for children. Forget it. All right. It's inconvenient, and celebrate their progress. It's inconvenient for your 3-year-old to get themselves dressed, put their shoes on, and out the door in time. But if you do it for them, they will never learn how to do it themselves. It's hard when your art teacher gives you an art project that seems unending and is hard to do. But when it is complete, you will have accomplished a difficult task. And if you put forth your best effort, it will produce a beautiful result. Continue to do things that are challenging as you age. I've recently been encouraged by one of our very own English teachers to finish reading The Count of Monte Cristo. That book is a beast. I started it years ago to only get 30% of the way through. I lost steam and I quit. So she challenged me to finish. She said, the end is the best part. So this is my Everest this year. Doing things that are hard challenges us for things that are harder down the line. Perseverance produces character. Character, hope. And guess what? The end is the best part. Parents, encourage activities that require persistence, like learning an instrument or playing in team sports. Don't quit or let your students quit mid-season because it's hard. Putting on your pads to hit another kid that's bigger than you is hard. Learning a vault routine, is hard. Working together as a team to make a basket or a goal is hard, but it requires persistence and hard work. Parents, model perseverance in your own life. Share your struggles and how you overcame them. Use narratives from your own life, people you look up to, or people in history to tell stories about virtue. There's a great book called The Book of Virtues. In it, different virtues are broken down by type, and there's various stories and poems with them. We read them to our children. Read them to your children. You can start when they're young. You can read some at the dinner table. They were written to teach these types of characteristics to children. High schoolers, stay away from influences that will bombard you with lies. Read the great classics to learn lessons about grit and perseverance. When things get hard, don't quit. Seek help from godly, wise influences. Parents, utilize your highest praise for when your children do kind acts, stand up for what is right, or make moral choices. If you only praise them when they get 100% on their math test or when they do something perfectly, this breeds perfectionism and puts unnecessary pressure on children. Parents and teachers, emphasize goodness, integrity, and honesty. Example, parents should make it absolutely clear how disappointed they would be if their child cheated on an exam or a PE test. Vigilantly monitor how your children treat other people, whether it be other adults, peers, or friends. Children need moral discipline. Start early and ground their moral teachings in biblical truth. As believers who have been filled with the gospel truth, we have hope in the goodness of God and what is to come. My favorite hymn says, my favorite hymn says, when peace like a river attended my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. This hymn, it was written by a man named Horatio G. Spafford. He wrote it right after his 4 daughters died in a shipwreck. Whatever thou lot, that has taught me to say, it is well with my soul. This song I sang to myself over and over when my husband was in the hospital. It is well with my soul. In closing, raising children who can endure life's challenges requires a focus on virtues like goodness, resilience, and perseverance. It means allowing them to fail, teaching them how to overcome, and rooting them in strong relationships and godly values. Remember, Proverbs 24:16 tells us, for though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. We are going to mess up. We are all sinners, and we are in need of a Savior because we are living in a sinful world. But let us strive to raise children who rise again and again, equipped with the strength of character to navigate life's storms with grace and courage. Protect them from the influences that will cut down the sapling, but don't cover them with a dome that they fall at the pressure of their own existence. Students, remember, you are either in a storm, coming out of one, or going into one. Life is never going to be easy, but if you are virtuous and seek the strength of the Lord, you will be strong and will find joy. May the joy of the Lord be your strength. May God bless your efforts as parents, teachers, and mentors in shaping the next generation. Thank you.
Wow, so full of wisdom. My goodness. Thank you so much, Angela. That was really outstanding. I really appreciate that tonight. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and open to questions right now, and I'm going to ask Mr. Wernley the other microphone, and we'll just go around the room, and people can raise their hands if they have questions that they would like to have answered by Mrs. Johnson. Do you have any first courageous people? Wow. Okay, there we go.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. So I really appreciate that all of the preventative measures. I think that's like very wise counsel. With 3 children, sometimes it comes on really quickly, so I don't have a lot of time to adjust. When we have a tough day and the kids crash out, do you do you have suggestions for like what to do in the immediate to help de-escalate?
So, to help de-escalate your child, you need to find what works best for your child to help bring down their nervous system. So, one example, one of my children, she is very sensory stimulated. So, loud noises, being around a lot of people. She gets in the car, I think in kindergarten she would get in the car and slug her sister. We've learned, put her in the shower. She just needs to be alone in the shower and she comes out a whole new girl. And she's singing and dancing and life is wonderful again. So find what works for your child. Is it they get in the car and you hand them a snack? Or you say, you're going for a run because I know you're gonna fight me. It will make you feel better when you are done. And it'll take time of training of, you're fighting me, but I promise you this is what works for you because you've learned, or you need to go just take a nap. I'll see you in an hour, and then wake them up, and then they're probably happy again. So finding for each kid is different, obviously. So one kid, are you hungry? Are you tired? Are you thirsty? Okay? So that when find what works for that kid, and then, does that help? Okay.
Other questions? Students, do you have any questions? Oh, sorry, Yetta, I didn't see you over there. Oh, I beat you, even in high heels.
Hello?
Hello.
If children are not exposed to, I guess, the horrors of online media, how will they adapt to it when they are adults and have to face it for the first time, as opposed to slowly, bits and pieces of it throughout the childhood?
So would you allow a child to slowly start drinking alcohol so that they could get exposed to it as they grow? And then when they're 21, then they know how to not drink too much?
Many people do.
Do you?
It's really common in the old country.
Is it beneficial?
I mean, if you want to become a great drinker.
They'll build up the tolerance, maybe.
Sure.
But no one would say, I am going to slowly start exposing my child to certain toxic things in their life so that they can build resistance. There's many things even adults can't handle hearing about or experiencing. I mean, even as a therapist, some of the atrocities that we had to see, we would have to constantly undergo reflection with our supervisors. If you are becoming numb to hearing a child talk about being raped, you've heard too much. If you are no longer disgusted, you need to take a break from your work.
But, I completely agree, but alcohol is not something, a child will be forced to do.
Mm-mm.
I mean, in this day and age, everyone will have to be exposed to these things.
Will they?
Is there? Yeah.
Do they have to be?
Well, I mean, it's very difficult to work a job and not be exposed to anything modern. I mean, these horrors will reach them eventually. Would it not be better for them to be more prepared for it?
So, how would you want someone to be prepared for it depending on what age they are? So, do you think an 8-year-old should be exposed to seeing graphic pornography?
I don't think so, no, but I
Okay,
feel like if
so
they get there.
So what happens is, when children have that exposure at a very young age, either they are traumatized by it because they are unable to handle that at the development that they are, then they are either acting out or behaving in different ways because they've been exposed to certain traumas. Children who've been exposed to rape themselves or atrocities of war. I've worked with kids who were victims of war in Africa. And so that child was acting out behaviorally and aggressively towards other children because of what they saw. So I don't think that allowing children to, let's slowly wean them onto the atrocities of the world, they will learn them eventually, like you said, but they will be adults. They will be able to handle, this is too much for me, I don't want to hear it. Or they will be able to handle it with the maturity to say, nope, I know how to manage my own emotions and process through this.
Cool.
Other questions? Wow, this is the fewest number of questions I think we have ever seen in this setting. Any others? Okay. How about any comments then? If you don't have questions, okay, here you go.
I have a question. How do you spot perfectionism? What are you looking for when a kid is wrestling with that?
Usually when I see perfectionism in a child or even an adult, it's an unwillingness to let a slight mistake or imperfection go. So when a child is, let's say, working on an art project and it's not turning out exactly like they wanted it or pictured in their head, they will start to lose their cool, get frustrated, maybe rip it up and I quit. A lot of times with perfectionism, I will see all or nothing thinking. So I'll see people who, if it's not going to be exactly right the first time I do it, I'm not even going to bother to do it at all. So, if that answers your question.
And then how would you respond to that if you see that in your kids, or if a teacher sees it in one of their students? How should they react to that?
So a lot of times, like when I see it with students, I will affirm that, like, that is a blessing and a curse, isn't it? Like, that is really hard to feel that way. But then just calmly assuring them it's okay if it doesn't turn out exactly how you expect it. I used to have clients who were extreme perfectionists, and I would tell them, you need to do one thing wrong. And I would have them either draw a picture with their left hand or say, okay, today you're not going to make your bed. And they would get twitchy and can't handle it because they can't go through life without doing that one thing. So there's ways, like, over time to kind of work through some of those perfectionistic traits. But it does take training and allowing them to know that if it's not perfect, you will be okay and it will be okay. You won't implode.
That's good, helpful. Any other questions? Oh, I see somebody in the back here. Mrs. Thompson.
What do you do with apathy? A student who's apathetic, you're trying to find a way to motivate them without flat out bribing them to do something. How do you figure that out, the apathy, getting a child to care?
That's a really hard one, because without knowing what's going on at home, what background situations are, what are they being exposed to, what they're experiencing, there can be so many different extrinsic forces that are causing that. I know when people that work with kids on the spectrum, and they often have to find, what is this person's motivator? Is it the stupid tablet? Is it a word of affirmation? Is it having that snack? It's something oftentimes small, and every kid is different for what their motivator is. But yeah, apathy is really hard, especially without knowing all the things that kind of are leading into it.
Any others? Okay, Vincent.
You said that as us students, we should watch out for sources that tell lies, right? How should we spot that? How should we spot a source that's a lying source?
Well, the first step is, does it line up with the Bible? So if it is going against anything that you know, the Bible is true, right? So anything that is telling you that you are not good enough, we know that's not true because the Bible says that Christ died for you and that your life does have worth. So first of all, is it true? We can just base go on the Bible. Then go to wise counsel. Is this something that's true? Is this something that I need to argue for myself, or argue against, or is this right? We have our moral codes. We have the 10 Commandments. You know what's right and wrong. So that is one of the best ways I'd say to spot lies. And you can also ask yourself, is this true or is this a lie? And if you don't know, ask people.
Like as a student, how do you motivate yourself to like be more disciplined, or just like push yourself a little farther to do that? Is there any like tips or tricks?
Yeah, start small. Start with like one thing that is easy. So if it's, I really want to read my Bible every day, start with just that. And it can be, no one needs to sit there and have a full kumbaya session with the djembe and the guitar. Like, it can be one verse. Like the Bible says, meditate on my word day and night. He doesn't say have a whole reading of the Proverbs. Meditate. So, okay, I can spend 1 minute reading a verse every single day. And then once that becomes a habit, then what's the next thing that I really want to achieve? I want to get up early, or I want to exercise, or I want to make sure my homework's done on time. Find small things and then check them off. Also, another motivator or thing to help you with discipline, whenever you're taking away something, replace it with something else. So like when I was trying to cut my having dessert every night habit, I replaced it with tea. So I was still having something every single night. I just wasn't having ice cream every single night. It was tea. So if you're wanting to I want to replace this screen time with reading time, exercising time, and make it equal in time. I spend 10 minutes doing this, so I'm going to spend 10 minutes doing that.
I just read a book, I'm reading a book right now, and it talked about habits. And it said, in order to get rid of a bad habit, you have to replace it with a good habit. And it only happens, she talked about it's nail by nail. You nail a new nail into that old habit again and again and again and again and again. And I thought that was really powerful. It ties into what you were just saying.
Speaking to perfectionism, what a lot of people do is, let's say like your goal is to work out for, New Year's. I'm going to work out every day. And then you get the stomach flu and then you don't work out for a week and it's the heck with it. I'm just going to go back to my old ways. No, if you miss a day, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. You didn't fail. If you miss a day of reading your Bible, God's not going to smite you. If you didn't, if you ate that bowl of ice cream one night, you're not going to gain 20 pounds overnight. It doesn't work that way. So not having that perfectionistic tendency, you will achieve your goals if you slowly and incrementally work on them, because eventually over time, it just becomes part of who you are. And like brushing your teeth. You didn't start brushing your teeth all by yourself one day. It was just your mom taught you. She was sticking her hand in your mouth, and then one day, eventually you started doing it. Now you don't even think about it.
Can you speak to the struggle of particularly middle schoolers, because with the development, and you alluded to this, there is a lot of stuff going on in middle school, right? And so everything's drama for the most part. When we were in middle school, the saying of, no one likes me, everyone hates me, I might as well go eat worms, that type of thing. That's spanned decades. How do we deal with a middle schooler that has this perspective and walk them through that without, coddling but yet validating, if that makes sense?
Well, what you said is right. Like, you want to coddle, but you want to validate. And middle school, like I said, middle school's really hard. Middle school is like, it's 3 years. how do we get through with as much of our sanity intact as possible? I think having a strong group of friends that can get you through to the other side is going to be paramount. Because if you have one or two, maybe it needs to be outside of school, maybe it needs to be at a church youth group or at a club or something where they can break outside of the normal, the people I see every single day type drama. But so having that community where they feel safe, where they can talk to and, oh, this person said this to me, but those friends are, no, we still like you. You're still okay. Having one or two really good friends will help get through that. And then just constantly, yep, it is really hard. It does get easier, I promise. And finding also, I like, the word is self-efficacy. So breathing life into your child about what are they good at. So people just don't understand because you are really good at this, and one day you will find people who are interested in that thing that you are interested in also. Though when the pool is really small, it's really hard to find people that are interested in the same things that you're interested. But then as the pool gets bigger, you eventually find those people that are into the same things. So, and that's the same with like anything, like people who are going through, cancer treatment or weird, diseases. I often say to them, find a support group. Like you need people that can understand exactly what it is that you're going through. And I think that's the same with middle school. You need people that around you that can help you find your worth and breathe that life into you.
All right, we have a question in the back here.
So you were talking about how there are certain things like you want to expose your children to slowly as they progress throughout their life, and there are some things that you don't want to expose them to, so when they're adults they can they know how to deal with that themselves. But there are some situations where children will be exposed to things that you don't want them to be exposed to. How should you go about addressing that if that happens?
If that happens, that's where, first of all, having that strong relationship with your child so that they can come to you, like if they were exposed to something or something happened that you didn't want them exposed to, that they can talk to you about and help process through that. So like, I didn't want my kids to have their dad be sick, and we had to process through it and talk about it. And we would talk about, it really stinks that daddy's in the hospital and not here with us now, and it stinks that daddy's sick. Or when he took certain medicines, it made him really upset and angry, and it's like, yeah, daddy's on his angry meds right now, so it stinks and we're upset, so we're gonna go to a friend's house. So having that safe place to talk is first of all number one importance. Otherwise they're just gonna bury it and keep it to themselves. But then if they're, like I said, if they're exposed, maybe you need to seek therapy to have a professional help if it's something really big that you don't think you can handle. That also is helpful. Up here, back. I'll let Eric get that one.
Hi, thank you for everything you shared tonight.
Yeah.
So great. Do you have any suggestions for when we all have boys here? We have 4 boys, and right now at home we have 9, 11, and 17. Do you have any ideas for when dad is more absent because of work, like seasonal? Like he's gone a lot in the summer. It's hardly around. Versus winter, do you have any suggestions? He's more around now, thankfully, but how to navigate that?
Yeah. So when dad's gone, having touch points if he's able to, FaceTime, call, and check in. I'm really proud of you. How are things going? What's going on? If that's not possible, the times that you are home, investing as much as possible into their lives. Go to the sports games, go to their stuff, take them with you to the hardware store, whatever it is, just being a part as much as possible. Another great thing for boys too is it doesn't just have to be dad. Like it could be a coach or men at church, maybe there's some pastors or elders that can be part of that mentorship, that can be a part that you guys trust and know are good people. It's like, hey, can you take the boys to the Twins game? Or can you just breathing that life into them when dad's gone? So if a mom was a widow, I would say the same. We got to find your boys some male role models to be a part of their life, to breathe that life into them still. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments at all? Oh, okay.
One more. You hit on a topic early on, the idea that success without virtue always fails, or
Leads to moral failure.
Moral failure, and it's the classic story of the lottery winner, right, that goes bankrupt.
Yeah.
The paradox is, as humans, we're always trying to find an easier, softer way. The dishwasher, the washing machine, whatever it may be. How do you verbalize to a child that we're going to do it that way? Besides just because.
I think it depends on the situation. So like, it's not saying we're gonna ditch that dishwasher because we want to teach you how to wash these dishes. But I think it's easier to do the dishes yourself than having your kids do them and say, this is good for you to learn. This is a good learning skill for you. And children will grumble, will complain, and not want to do things. But it's when they're 20, 30, 40 is when it matters that they have learned how to do those hard things. And you maybe don't have an amazing reason for why you're making them mow the lawn or shovel the sidewalk or whatever it is. You just need to do it. This is your job, or this is how you contribute to the family.
Can I tell a quick story about that? My husband grew up in a family where his father loved to burn wood in their, not fireplace, but it was like one of those fire heaters. I'm forgetting what they're called. What are they called?
Potbelly
Help me
stove?
out. Like a potbelly stove, yeah. And he wanted to keep the house warm with that, even though they had a furnace. So my husband remembers growing up, and he feels like all I remember is that I had to stack wood all the time. All I ever did was stack wood. I never wanted to invite friends over to my house because I knew my dad was going to put us to work. But then as an adult, he is one of the hardest working people I know. And I don't know anybody that can just go and go and go and go and go and work that hard. And so I think about that amygdala that you showed.
Oh, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex.
Yes. I thought, okay, his must be really huge. And for him, it's physical. For me, it was the other way around. It was all mental. I could go and go and go and go mentally. And so I think it's what kinds of practice we give our children growing up, and the opportunities is what develops that. So, yeah, so now he makes his own he made his own kids stack a lot of wood. Okay, another question here, Etta?
What's the biggest red flag in a child's development?
In what way?
I mean, like, it's like linked to serial killers, like they kill small animals.
Oh, well, you said it. They start
Sure,
killing small animals.
Like like in a normal kid, like, you have kids and you want to avoid them growing up into someone who you don't want them to be.
Yes.
What is the big thing that would set that off?
Like what type of scenario?
Maybe.
The one thing that I have seen that people almost always struggle to recover from is sexual abuse. That is one of the hardest things for people it destroys their soul. Bullying, I've been able to, we can recover from that. It does harm part of their, who they are. But those types of things are chronic parental neglect and abuse. So those are.
Does that affect the part of the brain that you mentioned earlier?
Depends on their development. So some children, I used to work with kids that were orphan babies and were never touched. And so they had some severe developmental delays because they were never held by other humans for the first 2 years of their lives. So yeah, it can absolutely affect their brain development.
And from that point, is there anything that can be done to reverse the effects?
Yeah, so we would do certain things. We did a certain form of therapy we would do attachment therapy with their adopted parents to try to help re-stimulate their brain. We would do certain occupational therapies and things like that to help, like we would even like have them crawling, cross-body movement, getting that corpus callosum going. Yeah, so different things to try to help, but there always would be some sort of a developmental delay in some regards. And sometimes you would see it like as an adult with emotional delays then. They may not have gross motor delays, it would be some sort of an emotional delay.
I actually have a question that came up based on, I think, an answer you gave. How do you distinguish between bullying and normal childhood, kids not being nice?
Bullying is when it is like one person to a child, like it's specific and it is recurring. And so if it is, there's always like the not nice thing that happens, but when it is pervasive and it is like antagonistic towards one person, I would consider that bullying.
And are there certain things that you would recommend for how to, even as a school, intervene in some of those situations?
Depends on the situation. So it would depend, like, are the parents able to get involved and intervene? Do we need to have some sort of mediation? With the children themselves? It all depends. Yeah. One size doesn't fit all on that one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Oh, Vincent.
At what point should you send a child to like therapy?
When a child is thoughts of harming themselves or someone else, absolutely. If you feel that you are inequipped to handle the situation, if the problem is like if a parent's marriage is starting to affect the children and we start to see maybe regressive behaviors or acting out in school or different things that you can't figure out what the problem is, then seeking the help of a neutral third party is awesome for that. Anxiety, depression sometimes, yeah.
Any questions here in the student body anymore? Okay. Any other questions and around the rest of the audience? All right. Well, Mrs. Johnson, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for putting together such a beautiful presentation and so informative, based in both research and your experience. And I can't imagine giving birth to a fourth child without my husband, and that's what she had to do. And that means you're a pretty strong lady. And with a lot of deep faith, your parents' work in you has paid off, and we see it in this beautiful woman standing before us tonight. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.